if you wanted to go buy a spatula, no matter how many times you've seen that television commercial, no matter how many times you've sung the jingle, no matter how much you love, whatever, that Cy Sperling guy there who loves the spatula so much about the company, what are you going to do? You're going to go to a Google box on a computer somewhere, and you're going to type in Spatula City because you don't know where it is. You don't know when they're open. You don't know how to get there. You don't know if they have the specific red plastic spatula that you want. And more often today, the computer you're going to type into that Google box looks like this. And if you can't find their website, you're not going to go to the store. And if you do see on Google that they have a bunch of negative Yelp reviews, you're not going to go to the store. Or, if you do find their website, just going to walk around this way, and it looks like this, and you click, I still don't know where it is, and I still don't know how to get there. When in today's day and age, this is how we use our phones. This. And oh, by the way, some 90% of local businesses are estimated not to have websites optimized for mobile phones. You land in a place like this, which is to say that if your business isn't where consumers expect to find it, when they want to find it, how they want to find it, and where they want to find it, you are more or less doing the equivalent of randomly closing your store on a Thursday, not paying the electrical bill. When you think about that television commercial for Spatula City or any other form of advertising your business, that's an incredibly important way to help people in the marketplace become aware of the fact that your business exists, to learn about what it does, hopefully to remember it, maybe even to feel good about it, to generate some purchase intent. These activities of making your business findable and usable on the web aren't really advertising at all. In 2015, these are operating requirements of your business. These are akin to, does someone show up in the morning and open the door and turn on the lights? Because if you don't do these things, you're effectively turning consumers away, making it very, very difficult for them to utilize your business. Stuff's not easy, right? We use a mountain metaphor because it can be really, really difficult to get to the top. When you think about all of the cool, sexy, fun, interesting things in internet and digital marketing and advertising that you probably read about, hear about, oh yeah, social media is really cool. We're going to talk about that. Targeted mobile advertising, the fact that you can find any consumer out there, know exactly what they're interested in, know exactly where they are, target messages directly at them. Pretty fascinating. Concept of content marketing and inbound marketing, where you can write content, and you can allow users to find you. It's amazing. But even if you think about just like the very bottom, search, the most obvious, basic, entry-level table stakes of digital marketing. Simple as someone types into a Google box, I want Spatula City. Does the Spatula City website or something relevant to their business show up at the top of that search page? Well, it should be relatively easy, right? Google's algorithm, code that actually determines what shows up on a Google search result, it's not actually an algorithm, it's thousands of them. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lines of code. It's the most secure, oftentimes considered the most valuable piece of intellectual property that has ever been created. Thousands of engineers work on it. Even they don't get to see the whole thing. I used to say that Google's algorithm was more secure than the NSA. Now I have to retool my shit. You know, that's not all that secure anymore. But literally, the engineers who work on it, work on their little piece, they don't get to see the whole thing. There's a guy out there, you can find him on Twitter, named Matt Cutts. He runs what's called the web spam team for Google. This guy gets to decide what is okay and what isn't okay in the world of search engine optimization, determining what you can do to promote your business. When this guy sends out a tweet, it's like back in the day when Alan Greenspan would come out and say that the stock markets were irrationally exuberant. The world moves when he says something, because we're all trying to read the tea leaves and figure out just how does this Google algorithm work. Yet you, as business owners who have to leave here and go back and actually run a business, are supposed to figure out, as the most basic blocking and tackling element of running your business online, how to make sure that every time somebody searches for something relevant to your business, that you show up at the top of the page. back to the statement I made before, but modifies it a little bit. And says, all right, well, these technologies are both mandatory and impossible for you. And I say for you because you have a business to run. You have other things to do. This is all I have ever done. So yeah, maybe I know a little bit about it, but I don't have to leave here in an hour and go run a business. When you think about what you do in that situation, faced with something that's mandatory and impossible, you think back a little bit to what Chris was saying. Think about, well, your most logical or natural reaction is going to be, I need to get some help. And there are lots and lots and lots of people out there who want to help you with this. There are no shortage of them. When you think about who you're going to trust to do that, not just who are you going to hand your checkbook to, but who are you going to allow, who are you going to trust to represent your business to the web, to create your face to the internet, to be the person who decides, does your business show up at the top of those Google search results? And when it does, do you like what people see? How are you going to choose that person? We use the metaphor, we showed you a mountain before, I use the metaphor of a Sherpa often. You may think of a Sherpa, you've probably heard of it. You may think of a Sherpa as somebody who helped other people climb Mount Everest. That's where they become famous, and they do that. But what a Sherpa actually is, a Sherpa is an ethnic group of people who for thousands of years have lived and been raised at above 15,000 feet in the Himalaya. The reason that's interesting is that over those years, their bodies have evolved differently than yours and mine. And to use a fancy medical term, even though Chris is the only doctor in the room, their bodies process hemoglobin differently than yours and mine. What does that mean? They get more oxygen out of the same amount of blood than we do. As a result, a Sherpa can stand at 29,000 feet at the top of Mount Everest. 29,000 feet is higher than the cruising altitude of the Airbus you'd be flying on into Kilimanjaro, into Kathmandu if you wanted to climb this mountain. You probably have some idea what would happen to you and to me in an Airbus if it depressurized. Sherpa would be sitting there reading his book, no problem. As a result of the fact that he's native to that area, or she, but generally he, can stand at the top of that mountain, breathe normally. That's why they can carry packs. That's why they can carry food. That's why they can chart the proper course and get people safely to the top of the mountain. It's not because they're better or smarter or faster or working harder than the climbers. It's because they're native to that environment. And when you think about who's going to help you get to the top of that mountain and get your business there successfully, you probably want it to be somebody who's actually native to those peaks. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all of my background or Troy's background, because you Google it if you care. But I will tell you, in this context, this is the only thing I've ever done. I was born and raised in the Silicon Valley of California. My mother, I believe, I'm still trying to prove this, I believe got the first master's degree in computer science that the state of New York ever gave a woman. When I was 11 years old, my dad brought home an IBM PC Junior computer. The day after I finished, I think it was 6th grade. Put it down and said, here's what you're going to do all summer. You're going to take this computer and you're going to learn to write a software program to teach your little sister how to do multiplication tables. Took me all summer long, but I did it. The only thing, literally the only thing I know how to do. It's more or less the only thing he knows how to do. The one exception being he took a few years off to run a chain of donut shops in Virginia. We'll tell you more about that. I don't quite get it. The reason that's critical, I don't. The reason that's critical to me, anyway. But you'll notice he's back doing this now. Anyway, is I think when you get all the phone calls that you naturally, obviously get from all sorts of people asking you, hey, would you let me help you with this? I think this is one of the most important questions that you should ask. And I'll give you a couple more as we go along. Another way to think about, in this context of who are you going to allow to help you with this, one of the questions that you should ask, in addition to this one, is, do they do it for themselves? There's an old saying in the internet world called eating your own dog food. If I'm going to come to you and say, hey, I want to help you with something, I ought to be doing it myself, and I ought to be pretty good at it, right? And one of the things that's really interesting is a lot of the folks here in the room from Fox 43, these guys have television stations. They have the most powerful thing ever created to get their message out and speak to people. And yet, they spend their day doing social media and worrying about stories on the web and putting mobile apps out there and trying to reach people through all these digital, mobile, and social technology. imagine for a second how important this must be for a business that doesn't have the television station. Complex as it can be, in many respects, it actually breaks down to four relatively simple things. The first one is, when someone looks for you online, can they find you? Probably a lot of the folks in the room, the answer to that is more often than not no. When they can find you, do you provide consistent, high-quality content that you like, that gets the message you want across to those people when they find you? Do you have the means to distribute that content into the places where people spend their time, their email inboxes, their social media pages, etc.? And can you use that distribution to generate leads, to get people to do what you want them to do? Whether that's to call you or show up at your store, request an appointment, whatever it might be. Sounds relatively simple, right? Well, just the idea of being found. It used to be as recently as, 7 years ago, maybe less than that all Google had to go on to decide whether your business's website was a relevant response to the query spatulas in North Pennsylvania were the words embedded in your website. And this whole business of what's called search engine optimization was born. Now, today, there are hundreds and hundreds of online directories, things like the yellowpages.com. There are dozens of social media platforms that Troy will talk a lot about that are used so much, it's absolutely unbelievable. There are lots and lots of search engines. There are ratings and review sites like Yelp where people can talk about how good your business is. And all of these things are cues that the internet uses to determine which websites it should show to a user who's searching for something as simple as spatulas in Pennsylvania. And it all starts with a website that you probably don't even know anything about. Who in the room even has any idea what Google Plus is? Well, I've got a few hands. I'm impressed. The reason I'm impressed is Google Plus was launched in 2007. Most people thought it was an attempt by Google to compete with Facebook. They thought, oh, well, they saw all this time and attention users are spending on Facebook. We want to make one of those too. When it didn't become that, most people just kind of tuned out and said, it was a flop. But actually, when it comes to being found online, Google Plus is the most important website that has ever existed for you. Strong statement. One of the things we'll mention more than once is Google likes a lot of things, it's good at a lot of things, but Google loves one thing more than anything else. And that one thing that Google loves more than anything else is Google. This is what your Google Plus page looks like, or this is what it looks like for an eye doctor. It has basic information about the business. Where is it? What's their phone number? What do they do? How do I get there? And it's actually a social network where people can comment on it, post pictures, ratings, reviews. But when it comes to being found online, does your listing on the yellowpages.com, does the data in there match exactly what's in Google Plus? Does the data on your Facebook page match exactly what's in Google Plus? On Yahoo Local and everywhere else that you can be found, is that data exactly the same? Well, if it is, you show up at the top of Google search results, which is really what we want to do. If it's not, you won't. Sure, there are lots of other places out there that Google could look, but the first place it looks is itself. And it looks at your data in Google Plus, and it compares that to everything else. And if your data and all of the other hundreds of places where your business exists online, if your data is not the same as it is on Google Plus, you're already in the hole. Another thing that you may or may not have thought about, how many of you are familiar with AdWords or search engine marketing? I've got a few hands. So a lot of people think about, how does my business show up on the first page of Google results through all the things we talked about before. All the words that are embedded in my website, SEO, all these directory listings, social media, ratings and reviews. AdWords, that's just cheap, that's cheating. That's just buying your way onto the first page of Google. Well, when you get home, Google something and look at the page. Look at it in the context of 75 to 80% of the links on that page are ads. That tells you something. Google's in the business of putting relevant results in front of you. Are they going to put a bunch of stuff on that page that doesn't work? Also think about it this way. Google trusts Google. When people click on these links, what do? It's called the wisdom of the crowd. They're beginning to teach Google that these ads, the websites behind these ads, are relevant responses for that query. And if you buy AdWords and people click on those AdWords, that's one of many ways that you can teach Google that your website is a useful response to that query. And it drives traffic to your website. Now, being found online is the only thing that matters. When people find you, you've got to like what they find. And the whole idea of